Hi teacher and classmates, my name is Arturo Peralta, Cielo, and I will present to you the fourth chapter of the present day English, the Multilingualism. Multilingualism by Peralta, Cielo, Arturo, and Cadena, López, Rosa, Andrea. English in the British Isles. Now we are going to talk about English in Scotland. The history of Scotland is a peculiar one, since in Scotland, a dialect of English evolved into a separate language called Scots. It was believed that it was just simply an inferior dialect of English, but fortunately, it survived. Along the time, people have tried at least 2 times to revive Scots as a literary language, and currently there is another similar move to develop Scots as a separate language, principally by those ones with Scottish nationalist parliament's leanings, who wish to take advantage of the new independence of the Scottish Parliament from Westminster and the dominance of the English. Origin of English in Scotland. It is believed that the original inhabitants of Scotland are the Picts, who, as we already know, live in the northeast of the land. Using the foreign known Ogham inscriptions as evidence that Picts did not speak an Indo-European language, so it is suggested that the non-Indo-European language was just a survival and used for ceremonial purposes. In general, according to Cox, it is suggested that the clerics will have learned Ogham and adapted it to Old Norse. What is sure is that the Irish invaded the north of Britain, bringing a variety of Celtic with them that was different from that of the Britons. The Romans referred to them as Scoti. Eventually, the Picts and the Scots merged into the Gaelic-speaking kingdom of Alba, which the Anglo-Saxons called Scotia or Scotland. By the 15th century, English began to be referred to as Scottish. Gavin Douglas, the poet, was the first person to insist that Scottish was a distinct language from English. Century 15 and 16 marked the golden age of Scots literature, the period of the makers or poets, Robert Henryson, William Dunbar, Gavin Douglas, and Sir David Lindsay. By then, official documents were also all written in Scots. Well, there is no doubt that interest is the revival of Scots as a literary language is growing. Teachers in Scotland are gearing up to teach about Scots in the English language classroom. Now let's talk about English in Wales. Commerce revolved around English-speaking townspeople. That was the main reason for the spread of English. Education itself became an even more important tool in the spread of the language. The major reason for the shift to English in Wales is that the Acts of Union state that English should be the only language in Wales with legal and administrative status. However, any non-English speaker was excluded from holding a position under the Crown, which forced people to learn English. Once again, English was associated with modernism, opportunity, and spirit. Bible and divine service were translated into Welsh in 1863, creating a linguistic double-edged sword. It helped Welsh to preserve the language, but Welsh was identified as the language of religion, diverting it away from any political importance. English entered more and more in the eastern regions. Education Act of 1881 promoted English in universal primary education, and through this the working class became more anglicized. English soon developed as the language of the workplace. Due to the percent of the people who immigrate from the southwest of England, there was no need to learn Welsh. However, there are societies that want still trying to keep alive the language, but it will depend on the speaker. My classmate will follow with the presentation. Thank you.
Let's continue with this topic, and I will continue with English in Ireland. So, there were three major historical periods of English influence. The first one was when the Anglo-Norman period, when Henry II landed his Pembroke-based Anglo-Norman troops in Ireland in 1171. Then, in the 1550s, there was Roman Catholic opposition to the Reformation and Irish Gaelic. And the Irish Gaelic was seen as a long-established symbol of Catholic Ireland, while English was the language of Henry VIII's Protestant country. Then the second period, when Ireland was colonized by the Englishmen by instituting the plantations in 17th to 18th century. So there was a strife between the Protestant English and the religious Scots. The last period was when the Acts of Union made Ireland part of the United Kingdom in 1801, and there the Irish population was divided to the circle they speak English. So some of the traits of present-day Irish English were and are constructions. For example, I am after finding it, or he do be living in Cork. Also answers to a question with indeed or indeed not instead of yes or no. And word stress that is often different syllable than the standard English. Okay, there were some causes of the rapid decline of Irish as a language. The first one was the expansion of the right west, all from English speaking, Dublin and Belfast. Then the spread of education in health schools and in the national schools from 1831. And dramatic demographic change by famine and massive immigration to America and other countries. That was between the 1830s and 1850s. And the association of English with progress, modernization, and an international voice. That was especially the biggest reason. Then, after the Easter upspring of 1860, there was a return to regarding Irish as the language of Ireland, also as a symbol of Ireland. But it was too late to save the Irish, sorry for the spelling, the Irish language as a national language. Today there are virtually no monoglot Irish speakers left, but there was some attempt to bring back Irish in the schools. And today Ireland's position in the European Union is added to because it's an English-speaking country. So finally, the Irish English dialects are known as Hiberno English because these three varieties. The first one is rural Hiberno English, spoken in the countryside and the west. Second, urban Hiberno English because of contact with outsiders, perhaps perceiving some original Anglo forms, Norman forms. And the last three is because educated Hiberno English influenced by standard English and modern educated Hiberno English influenced by the media and the newspaper, also television and others technology. So that's it. Thank you.